Hi, in this video I want to talk about the Android activity lifecycle in some detail. So let's get started. An activity can be in one of 6 states throughout its lifecycle. It can be in what we call the created state, where the activity has been created, but it is not yet visible. The started state, the activity is actually in the process of being displayed. It's only partially visible, but the activity itself is started. The resumed state, the activity is fully visible and it can be interacted with. The paused state, in which the activity is only partially visible. The stopped state, in which the activity is invisible, completely covered up by another activity or completely off the screen, and it may be either restarted or destroyed at this point. And the destroyed state, the activity is no longer in memory. So along with each of these states, and even with another kind of substate, there is a method that gets called to get us into this state. So these methods are shown here. OnCreate, and the method names kind of go with the state that they're going into. OnCreate is called, and then when OnCreate is done, we're in the created state. Then OnStart is called, finishing up with the started state, and so on and so forth. OnResume for resumed, OnPause for paused, OnStop for stopped, and then there is another method here that I neglected to mention. OnDestroy is called when we're going into the destroyed state, but typically we do very little by overriding OnDestroy, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Now, stopped is kind of a strange state, because stopped, we can do one of two things. We can either restart the activity, or we can destroy the activity. Well, it all kind of depends on what happens while we're in resumed when we're interacting with the activity. For example, if the user presses the back key and stops the application, what we would think of as closing the app, then we go from pause, stop to destroyed, fairly rapidly actually. However, if the user presses the home key and just gets out of the application and can restart it later, or if an activity is a sub-activity and it doesn't actually get destroyed, then we go from resumed to paused to stopped, and we hang around in stopped until the activity gets restarted. If the activity gets restarted, then 2 methods are called. First, we have OnRestart, followed by OnStart, and these are shown here in this chain, going back to started, and these are called in very rapid succession. And then we're in started, the activity is becoming visible again. And finally, OnResume is called, resulting in activity sticking around again, being fully interactive in the resumed state. So these lifecycle methods that we just discussed, OnCreate and so forth, are called before the corresponding state is entered. We can override these, and we should override these, to perform various functions. OnCreate is a great place, it's the canonical place, let's say, to bind control IDs to properties or local variables, or however we want to handle that, and load up any information needed at the start of the activity, or set properties in our activity class itself, or do all that kind of startup stuff. OnResume and OnPause kind of go together. On pause, we're going to be saving any kind of state information that we want the next time the activity might run. On resume, we're going to be restoring that state information. We can also save files, we can close connections to databases, we can do a lot of good stuff in on pause that we undo in on resume. The reason we use on pause and not on stop is that on pause gives us a lot of time to do stuff. On pause gives us typically at least half a second to get things done, whereas on stop, let's say, is not a good place. It doesn't give us very much time at all. We'll see that in the Hello Lifecycle demonstration that's included in these videos. Each of the methods, however, all of these on lifecycle methods, must call through to super. If you don't call through to super, you will get a runtime error. This is not a compile time error. Nothing looks wrong until you run it. And then, when one of these methods is called, if it does not call through to super, it's going to blow up in your face. Finally, the activity spends nearly all of its time in the resumed state. In other words, in the fully interactive and fully visible state. So what about this visibility concept? Well, we have 6 lifecycle methods. We have 6 lifecycle states. Resumed is fully visible. Paused and started, those 2 states, are partially visible. Started is partially visible because it's coming up. Paused can be partially visible for one of 2 ways. First of all, it could be going on to stopped. It could be becoming invisible, or another activity could be partially obscuring it. And in that case, both, it will remain in the pause state. If it's fully obscured by another activity, or if it's fully gone off the screen, it's in the stopped state. Stopped and started are, stopped and created are alike in this way. Created and stopped, they're both fully invisible. So if it's fully obscured by another activity, it's in stopped, and on pause followed by on stop will be called. If full visibility is restored, it returns to the resume state, and if it was in the stop state, on restart followed by on start followed by on resume will be called and will pass through that started state on our